Well, good afternoon. I'm with Jeff Unalp CPA of Unalp CPA Group in Northern California. And as I mentioned, Jeff is an accountant, but he's also a lawyer. He is part of the California Bar and has a unique skill set which combines accounting and legal expertise. And today we're going to talk about a new offering that Jeff and his team of accounting professionals has available for nonprofit organizations. Jeff, can you tell me a little bit about the assessment that you've pulled together?
Sure. Thank you, Don, for having me. The assessment that we have put together is an opportunity for executive directors or director of finances or CFOs to call and for them to ask us to do an assessment on their accounting department. And we basically look at three things. We look at the people, the processes, and the technology. Because nowadays the technology has changed so quickly that sometimes the people haven't kept up or the processes haven't kept up. And in order to have an efficient and effective accounting department in a nonprofit, you have to have all three working together. And sometimes there's the disconnect, and that's where we can come in and help where there is a disconnect, and we can identify the issues for either the executive director, the board, or the CFO, and recommend solutions that help the accounting department to get back to where they're efficient and effective.
So, you talked about the three issues: people, process, and technology. With many small and growing nonprofits, there isn't a formal accounting department, and those responsibilities sometimes fall to the executive director who doesn't have accounting expertise. Is that an accurate assessment of the sector? Do you run into that? And how do you address that or help them to address that?
So we run into a variety of situations. Sometimes the executive director is doing some of the work and doesn't quite have that background. They have the background in the mission, but not the background in the accounting department. Sometimes it's somebody that's stepped in to help, and they're doing their best to help, but they again do not have the background. So many times we can help out by looking at the technology they're using and help them to implement certain technologies that will improve the flow of the work and also give them the confidence by putting in the correct processes that things are being done correctly. And I think that's important for them to be able to sleep at night because they don't know what they don't know.
Correct. There is definitely an emotional desire within most nonprofits to send every dollar to the mission. Under what circumstances is it a good idea for a nonprofit to divert funds to pay for a finance diagnostic assessment that you offer?
Well, the issue becomes when they don't feel like they have the intelligence in the accounting numbers to advance the mission. They don't feel that they're accounting for things correctly because that can directly affect the mission with their stakeholders. If the donors don't have the confidence or the board does not have the confidence in the numbers, that directly affects how they can raise money, what their mission, how can they follow their mission or make their mission possible, because at that point people don't have confidence in the organization. So it can be a degradation in the organization because of that. And people need to have, the stakeholders need to have the confidence that what's being reported is correct. And I think also for the executive director, they need to have the intelligence to have to know what their cash flow is and when they may run out of cash flow. How many months do they have in reserve? Those are all really just basic and important items for an accounting department per se to have. Now, granted, the executive director is not going to be the accounting department, but they do need to know, basic questions of cash flow and do we have enough to get through the next year? Where are donations coming from? Who's donating? Those are important questions.
You also look for inefficient processes within the organization. Can those be issues that thwart the goals of the organization, or are they just inconveniences?
They can thwart the organization. For instance, the you see certain organizations that are doing grants on Excel spreadsheets. Well, is that correct? Is that, what if you get that information wrong? That can undermine the organization and the grants that it's receiving. Again, not knowing, how to do cash flow forecasting is critical for nonprofits. If you run out of money, you certainly can't fulfill your mission. And processes by themselves, you can see where there's some inefficient processes. For instance, if you have an organization that's using Salesforce, the nonprofit Salesforce, and they don't have it feeding directly into their books, that can cause problems because what's being recorded in Salesforce isn't getting into the books, and so it may not be accurate. So you may be reporting the wrong information.
So, how easy is it for the organization to do this? Do they just give you a call and then you set up a time? And then what happens? What is the process and what is the deliverable?
Sure. Our goal when they call is to set up a time with them and whoever else is touching the books. So we want to talk to those key stakeholders who are touching the books. It could be the executive. We'll definitely want to talk to the executive director. We're going to want to talk to people. If they have an accounting staff, we're going to want to talk to the accounting staff. We're going to want to come out and see the technology, document the processes. It could take a day or a day and a half to do that. Once we're done with that, we certainly want to know the backgrounds of the people that are doing the work and the experience that they have. And once we have all of that work, we're going to go away for a week or two and put together a report that will identify each issue and how to correct that issue and a timeline of how soon that should be corrected. What's critical, what's not critical, but important. And how much it's going to cost. So they have an idea on what needs to be corrected, the timeline and the cost to correct those items.
So they'll have a fully formed document that addresses the problem, gives some recommendations on a solution, and it's something that they and the board perhaps could review together and begin to implement.
Absolutely. And since I've done closes for about 27 years, I have kind of seen every sort of close that's out there, and I'm in that unique position of being able to identify those weaknesses and help to assist in making those recommendations and corrections. It certainly, after 27 years, you get a lot of experience in how finance departments and accounting departments work and what the issues are that surround and impede efficient and effective departments.
Well, Jeff, I know that you're a big believer in leveraging technology. And I think part of the problem that a nonprofit faces is that if they are so enmeshed in the problem or in manual processes or inefficiencies, they're spending all of their time kind of slogging through the work that needs to be done, and there's not an opportunity to take a look at what the new best practices are and how technology facilitates that. Would you say that in the new millennium, that technology and the ability to put that to work for nonprofits is easier and more affordable than it's ever been before? And why is that?
Oh, definitely. The technology has improved at such a rapid pace that even 5 years ago, it was very different than it is now. Technology is evolving so quickly that that now where it used to be cost prohibitive and you couldn't link disparate systems together, now you certainly can. There's ways to avoid double entry on a key piece of data. For instance, as I mentioned before, there's Salesforce and there's connectors where you can connect it to your financial software, and that's a huge leverage for accounting departments to be able to use these disparate systems and link them together. There's things called middleware now, where it sits in between two systems and acts as a bridge. And it's not like 10, 15 years ago where bridges, sometimes the data didn't efficiently cross the bridge. Nowadays, there's so much out there where you can configure a system to have that middleware have one system talk to another. And it's incredible the leaps that technology has made. We use Xero and Intact, and we do use QuickBooks. Intact has been made such incredible leaps in their nonprofit systems that nowadays it's very easy to put systems to link them to Intact. So I think it's not like it was 10 or 15 years ago. And staying on top of the technology, our firm is cutting edge in that has really helped us to serve our clients well.
That's great. Well, thank you for your time this morning. I really appreciate it. And just to summarize, this is a specialized service for nonprofit organizations to do a complete finance assessment diagnostic of their people, their processes, and their technologies. Jeff, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you, Don. I appreciate it. Have a great day.